Okay, let me show you my actual system. Well, here it is. It's simply two glass sliding glass doors that are set up in a Army pump tent fashion. I'll show you that the way that is. You simply take the two sliding patio glass doors and you let them rest on each other in tent fashion. And I'm just simply using scrap paper as a spacer so that one metal frame doesn't scratch the glass. Here's the other side. So that's the outside of it. Oh, let me show you the ends. On the ends, you can see that the tank is simply sitting inside, and I don't have that fully closed off. This section here, you can see that there's an open space. There's an open space right here. Now, you might complain about that and say that you need to seal that off as well as on the other side. Well, I did at first. The first year I did try that, and then I also tried it with partially sealed and some air leakage, and I didn't see much difference either way. And then I tried it with simply not using it at all, other than what you see here. And I'd say within a few degrees I get exactly the same results. So all of the sweating and stressing over how to keep these ends sealed was not a real issue. Now this is based on my experience in the summer. In the winter, I did not investigate this too much, but naturally in the winter, because of the temperature doesn't get as hot as it would normally, it wouldn't hurt at all to close these ends off. And if I was to keep this system, that's exactly what I would do, is perfectly seal these ends, and I'd put an insulated floor rather than having it the way it is now. Let me show you some other things. Right here, right here, that was the thermostat that used to be for controlling the element inside this tank. What I did was I took that thermostat off, realizing that I'm never going to use this tank again for electrically heating water, and so I took the thermostats off and couldn't figure out what I could do with them until one day I realized I could take these thermostats and use it as a temperature sensor to let me know in the house when the sun's heated up the upper section of water, so that I could start using it right away as soon as it gets hot, rather than let it sit all day already hot and not being used. So I simply use that as a continuity thermal switch to alert me in the house whenever the connections close or open. You can have it either way. You can have it normally open or normally closed, depending on which kind of thermostat switch you have, and that would let you know when the water is up to whatever temperature you want. There is a little dial on that thermostat where you can control it to where you want it to trip, where the trip point will be. It's not needed, but it's just a feature that I'm using. On this side of the tank, at the top is what labeled as hot, and on the bottom is labeled as cold. And the bottom is using PVC, and the top is using CPVC. This is 3/4 inch. I kept it at 3/4 inch just because that's what the fitting size is anyway. You don't have to do that, but that's what I'm doing. The aluminum covered connection there, that's simply to keep the environment off of it and keep the lizard from dropping its poo-poo on it and so forth. And I did that on all the connections that I'm not using. Let me show you that again. Yeah, so here's the two thermostat the elements. One element's there, and I've got aluminum foil covering it up because it's got plastic on it, and I didn't want the ultraviolet from the sun to destroy it. And over here, there's the other element, and aluminized foil over it too. So basically well, you know what, since I'm going to be stopping using this tank right now, give me just a minute. I'm going to remove these sliding glass doors so you can see it much better. Okay, we're back, and I have removed one of the sliding glass doors. And what you can see is I took the 40-gallon hot water tank that I got from Craigslist, and I simply took the sheet metal and insulation off of one half of the body. Let me show you what I mean. So 180 degrees of that circular part is removed. Now most people, when they do this, they take all of the insulation off and all the sheet metal. But I didn't think that it really was that beneficial to do it all the way around. If you look here, if you look right there, there's not much distance from there to the ground as far as the angle of the sunlight coming in. So it didn't feel like I was really gaining very much by removing all of the sheet metal. And not only that, but on the bottom of the tank, there's no sun going to get to it anyway because the angle is horrible. Even if it did reflect some to it, it's practically nothing. And that would be just another potential point of heat loss from the bottom. In this way, the insulation is maintained around the bottom, and so that sort of insulates me from the ground and drawing heat away from it. So it's you know, 2.5 dozen of the others which way is the best way to go, but this is the way I'm doing it. I'm pretty happy with this system over the last 2 years. I'm going to be changing. Like I said, today is the last day that I can really use this system by itself without turning on the in-house hot water tank. So I'm going to be dismantling this system because I have an idea for a much better improvement. So with that, let me take you back to my sketch over there, and I'm going to show you some of the inefficiencies and problems that I saw that could be that this kind of a system has that, and I'm going to be making a different system soon to hopefully will alleviate most of those problems. Okay, I'm back, and here is a critique of this system based on my 2 years of using it. What you have in this sketch is, here is the hot water tank used as the batch heater. It's tipped to face the sun. The temperatures at 3:30 p.m. on one of the earlier summer days, I forgot what month it was, but it was back in the early summer. This was a typical temperature response, and in case you can't see it, I'll just read out the numbers. Here at the top of the tank, it was 146 degrees here. In the middle of the top of the tank, it was 136 degrees Fahrenheit. Everything will be in Fahrenheit. At the lower section of the top, it's 113 degrees. Here at the top of the tank, but in the middle section, right at the water line, it was 118 degrees. In the midsection, below the water line, it was 111 degrees. And in the lower section, it was 100 degrees. And then at the sheet metal lower half of the hot water tank that we talked about that I did not cut away, I left it just like normal, the sheet metal was reading 125 at the top of the lower section. In the middle of the lower section, it was 145, and at the bottom on the outside sheet metal, it was 144. And just to give a comparison, I measured the sliding glass door's metal frame, and at the top it was 118 degrees. And on the sides of the sliding glass door, I measured 127 degrees. So this gives you an example of the different temperatures in different areas. And I think this was based after running this for 5 minutes just to give a control. And then now I'll point out some of the issues. One of the problems with this batch tank system is that this water level, because you have to tip the tank to angle it to meet the sun, there's always going to be this air pocket right here above the water line. Well, as long as there's an air pocket there, that's a poor heat exchange between the sun converting energy to heat at the metal surface, and then the metal surface exchanging that heat by conduction into the water. At this lower section of the top, you can see that the metal is in contact with the water. But as you go higher up on the tank, you can see that more of the sheet metal of the tank is not contacting the water, and it's only contacting air. So there's an inefficiency right there, is by having the tank tipped, you're going to have this air pocket here that's going to cost us as far as efficiency of getting as much heat into that water as possible. Now, if we were to tip the tank straight up, then you wouldn't have the air pocket, but then you have the other problem is you've got such a poor angle at the sun, you're not going to get the most heating efficiency as well. So those are the biggest problems with this type of system. And due to thermodynamics, or the fact that you got the low density water, the high density water, the natural tendency is the hot water doesn't want to mix with the cold, and the cold doesn't want to mix with the hot. So unless you have an electric circulation pump to keep circulating this water around, the natural tendency, law of thermodynamics, is there's going to be a layer of hot water up here at the top, and the sun will only heat that up to a certain temperature till it reaches equilibrium, and that's all you get. So even though you have all this cold water at the bottom, it's simply not going to conduct to it to convey that heat down here at the bottom. So I call this this insulation layering effect. So this natural layering effect is hurting us as well when we have just a layer. And I think the layer for the practical size is like 1 to 2 inches thickness. So 1 to 2 inches thickness around this sphere. If you look at on the end, the half sphere, 180 degrees coverage of the top part of it, you're simply got an issue there with not being able to get everything translated into hot water because of that insulation, natural insulating effect. So there are solutions around that. You could have a solar panel over on the side, and you could have an electric pump that constantly circulates that water. But like I said, in this case, I was looking at getting the simplest, lowest cost, dirt cheap thing you can have. Anybody can add more complication to anything and make it increase performance, but those always have costs too, because someone has to fix it when it breaks. It costs time and money to replace stuff. So I think sometimes less is better than too much extra complication. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to share, like, and comment. And on my next video, I'm planning on starting my change from the solar batch system to a different system, and I believe it will solve this insulation layering effect for circulation, and I think it will improve the overall efficiency of getting more of this 40-gallon water actually heated up, rather than just a sliced section of it getting heated up. Now, one thing I'll add is, one way to get around this heating layer effect is you could have a timer, or you could simply just note how often in the house you need to use the hot water in order to get a natural circulation as you bring water from your well or whatever through the system into this tank and it out. So you would be in effect circulating doing it that way too. So I've done that. Sometimes I will circulate some water, run the sink just to wash a few dishes or something at noon, and then at 5 o'clock I'll do it again. But then on other times when it's just not as warm a day, what I'll do is I simply will avoid using the hot water until 5 o'clock, because at 5 o'clock that's pretty much the end of the useful heat coming from the sun to heat that water up. So it's kind of a game of use it or lose it. Once the sun goes down, because half this tank is uninsulated, you're naturally going to have some heat loss starting right away. So it behooves you to use the water and get it into the house tank as soon as possible. Take your showers, do everything that you want at that time, but you don't have to. I sometimes I've waited till 10 o'clock to take a shower and it still was just fine. Just the cost is this water here. If I wait till 10 o'clock at night, the cost is that this water is not as warm as it was at 5 o'clock in the evening, and so now I'm dumping cooler water into the house tank, rather than if I had taken my large hot water usage at 5 o'clock, I would be using as much of this heated water, free heated water, as I could. So that's it, and well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching, and be sure to come back soon, because I will have another video soon. Thank you. Bye.